today's NIPM Audio Room's weekly session. So today's our topic is AI, data analytics, digital transformation, automation in HR. So we have today's our guest is Ms. Jay Polaki, who is SHRM and SCP and SPHR certified. And today the session will be moderated by Mr. Dr. Manoj Menon. So I'll be introducing both of our guests today's here. And Ms. Jay Polaki is a global HR technology innovator and thought leader in HR digital transformation, future of work, ethical AI in HR, talent selection and assessment system, and employee experience. She brings her experiential learning and insight to her keynotes and regular contributions to Forbes, HRD, and other global HR publications. Meeting the challenges of the people right where they are, taking the people first approach, and providing transformation workplace technology solutions is why Jay loves working in people function. As the founder and CEO of HRGeckos and a digital HR operation digital HR operation platform powered by an AI chatbot, which is a new technology emerging, which giving a lot of experience in. And Jay's mission is to transform employee experience in hybrid workplace so that people and organizations thrive, making HR as agile as is a Jay lives in Washington, D.C. metro area and reads Agatha Christie, grows tomatoes, and wrote her HR stories with global HR leaders on her podcast Bites. Words and loves training her chatbot HR Jigport with her little reviews. Moderator Manoj Menon, I would like you to take you through minutes about his profile with. He is with a PhD holder from Cochin University of Science and Technology and postgraduate degrees in HR Management Psychology. He has experience in field of education spanning 25 years. Great career enriched with academic and research. He has been on the board of examination in different universities. He has also served as a principal of College of Management and Applied Science and its faculty of IIM Kozhikode. He has also been an international scholar to Harvard Business School, Western Michigan University, USA. Training and consultancy services provide both corporate as well as education institutions, include clients like Taj Group, Asian Communications, Syndicate, US Software, Chayovo, Caltech, Kitco, Geojet, Sahurdia Group of institutions, and the HRGeckos. So I hand over today's session to Menon. You, sir.
Good morning, Jay.
Good morning. How is everyone today?
We are doing fine.
Wonderful.
It's around 10:30 over there.
It's about 10:30 in the morning. So I was going to say, I hope all of you have had dinner because nothing's going to transform unless you are on a full stomach.
It's a little early for me personally because it's just about 8 o'clock. I'll have mine as soon as this program gets over. Okay. So Jay, heard your introduction. It's a great introduction that was given by Zishan. Thank you, Zishan, there. And it's nice to know that you've had so much of experience and you're into a very niche area, which is becoming very popular or rather very important now. But amongst us, the audience today, there could be a number of people who have probably heard the words, but really don't know sometimes what it means and what it entails. So, Jay, to start off with, what is a real phase of HR technology transformation? What does it really look like?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for
Thank
you so much for that question. That's a great question to start off with. We often think of this technology transformation or digital transformation in HR as something really big happening out of our daily work and not happening while we're working. But in simple terms, it's all about adopting digital tools in our everyday work, right? It's all about our human experience as we operationalize HR in today's world of work in this hybrid workplace using digital tools at our disposal. What does it really look like? Well, I wish I could show you this visual of a room full of paper boxes, right? And this tangled like web of wires and harried customers demanding resolution fast. And in the midst of all this, there's this entire HR project team working long hours to totally digitize operations and processes. Now, that's the real face of digital transformation. It's happening as we live, work, and breathe. And it's not some phenomenon happening on its own, right? It's in tandem with everything we're doing in HR today.
What do you think are going to be the biggest benefits of this transformation that is happening? Benefits to the organization?
Well, when I see digital transformation happening in organizations, I see a lot of efficiencies happening at the same time. When we use technology, instead of just a Band-Aid approach, but in a truly digitally, fully digital transformation kind of perspective, we really see a lot of transformation happening in our people, in our processes, and even in the adoption of the technology that we are promulgating to our organizations. Take, for example, any form that you have your employees complete as part of your HR operations. Now, if you think of a form, and if you create a PDF of this form, it's digitization. It is to a certain extent, but true digitization happens only when you actually digitize the process that form is being used for. So there is a lot of technology out there that's helping us do this today and become more productive, become more efficient, and definitely alleviate a burden on the HR teams. HR teams have so much already, and then our workloads definitely like quadrupled over the past couple of years through the pandemic and after, with the whole, quiet quitting, great resignation, and all the different buzzwords that you can throw at us. We've been through it all. So this is a great time for organizations, and especially HR functions in organizations, to leverage the technology that's out there to transform our function.
Jay, usually you find that in an organization, actually the largest number of files are with the HR department. Okay, right from employee files onwards, everything. How do you see the role of HR changing with this AI and automation in the workplace?
So that's a great point you bring up, the boxes, right? I always talk about this anecdote. I share this anecdote when I'm asked about paper in HR. When I first started out as an HR director almost 11 or 12 years ago at an organization, I was handed this conference room full of boxes of paper. Right? It was I-9s, which is the employment eligibility document here in the US. There were applications, there were all kinds of forms that were completed but never really digitized and stored away. There were facilities to do it, but we didn't have the resources or the mindset. I often talk about how they're, as an HR leader, to navigate this whole digital transformation scenario, you really need to think about this in three different ways. How are you educating your team? The skill set, how is their learning helping them adopt and adapt technology to make work easier for them and for their workforce? And then how are you changing or working on the digital mindset? Right? How are you mentoring your team? How are you mentoring your workforce to shift to a digital mindset? Because without that shift in mindset, no adoption is going to happen as quickly as you want it to, at least. And then the tool set, right? The third approach is usually the one we focus on, right? providing all the right tools, giving them the digital tools, and thinking that all of this will take care of itself. But you really need to think about this in this three-pronged approach: the skill set, mindset, and the tool set. And definitely it's a Herculean task, but that is what we need to be focusing on to achieve that real digital transformation in HR today.
Okay, you started off with skill set, mindset, and tool set, uh, but people are feeling slight, uneasy over here. What do you think are the skills that HR would need, to stay relevant in this kind of an era?
Well, definitely our HR colleagues need to educate themselves on analytics, using metrics and data to inform the decisions and the projects that they're promulgating in the organization is so key, because a data-driven approach, as we've seen through all of the research that's out there, is something that will stand us in good stead throughout the rest of all of the different changes that we are going to bring about. So having that skill set to analyze data, we have so much data in HR today. We have data farms full of data on our people today. How are we utilizing that data to help our people? That should be our focus, and definitely honing our skills in analytics, in how do we use digital tools to our best advantage, and also helping our HR colleagues, come out of that Excel spreadsheet or that Word document and be more interactive with the humans, right? The H in HR is so big today. You really have to focus on that human experience that you are here for in the organization, and you are the ones who need to foster that in the business. So do focus on that, the human experience, the empathy part of your skill set as well.
Now, since you talked about this, we are talking about, I think, about different strategies. And I want to ask you, from your experience, what does it take to actually create a successful digital HR transformation strategy?
Well, think again, I'm sure you've heard of this term, people, process, and technology, right? How are we fostering the human experience through digital tools in our organization? And the human experience is all about the complete experience a person has with HR, both digitally and physically. So, it's not just in the virtual space that these experiences are happening. In our hybrid workforce, we have interactions going on in the physical and the digital space simultaneously. And some of the thought leaders out there will tell you that employee experiences with HR in the past, which were always not so flattering, are informing their current perception of how HR deals with employee situations and the workforce. And it's kind of like a vicious cycle. We really need to help our workforce break out of that kind of past mindset and make sure that HR is very user-friendly. We use a lot of jargon in HR that not even some of our business leaders understand. So we really need to help and enable. We are the enablers, so we need to enable our workforce and our business leaders to see the value in HR as a function and as a business partner in the business.
Now, you talked about strategy. From my experience, there are a lot of people for a couple of decades who have been talking about strategies. We find the greatest challenge is in implementation. The strategy and all is well written, words are there, documented perfectly. What are those challenges in implementation? Because that's the biggest hurdle in this process.
Well, again, it's all about the people. We always think of digital transformation as something that is a tool or a digital platform that when implemented will just make everything so beautiful and nice and utopian for our workforce. But adoption of any new technology, as you know, it also needs to align with the organization's priorities, your company, your employer's priorities. And it's very essential to be conscious of how this new technology ties into your business's vision. Also, how does this new technology tie in with your customer satisfaction goals, both your internal and your external customers. How do you keep them satisfied, and what are the KPIs you're using to measure those? So again, metrics, such a big component. And then how are you keeping your employees engaged by implementing this new technology? All of these pieces are so key. HR is a people function. And we definitely, like I mentioned earlier, exist to enrich and enable responsive and adaptive services and processes within HR and within the company. So direct feedback from our employees is one of the biggest pieces of a successful digital implementation. How are you engaging with the employees and with the people who are using this tool or technology or platform that you've adopted within your organization? What is the feedback they're giving you? Are they able to use this the way you intended? Or are they not using it at all? What are the user engagement rates for that particular piece of technology that you've implemented? And how are employees feeling about this technology? So important today. Like, is it helping them, and is it making their work easier? Such a crucial question to ask and listen.
Okay, since you talked about we talked about strategy, we talked about implementation. We basically have to go through the whole change management process when the entire digital transformation happens. But what are some of the ethical issues that have come up? And I'd like you to also talk something about the lipstick, the digital lipstick. I've heard of it. I've not been able to make full sense of it.
So the term digital lipstick is a term that, when we use the term, it's the Band-Aid approach that we take to digital transformation. So again, let me give you an example. We have something called the I-9 form here in the US. It's one of the most significant forms as part of the hiring process. And if it is not done right, there are huge penalties associated with it from the federal government. So there's very little room for error when this form is being completed, and it's always on paper. It's always been on paper. So, when I talk about digital lipstick, how can we transform this paper-driven, crucial piece of the hiring process into a digitized, more efficient process? So imagine a portal where you can completely digitize the handling of this particular process. So I'm not talking about the Excel spreadsheet we maintain on who completes what, or who has given you all the documentation that they need to for this form. I'm talking about a digital portal where you collect the I-9s and all supporting documents, verify the authenticity of the documents before that stipulated period by the USCIS, and complete the process in a truly digitized manner than just using a paper first kind of approach to it. So that's usually what I refer to when I talk about digital lipstick.
And Jay, like everything in tech, when it comes to especially information technology, we are using a lot of information, especially personal information, when it comes to HR. What are the issues with regards to privacy and security? Those things that come into this digital transformation.
So there's a lot of that, right? I mean, think about just your engagement on social media today, right now, during this live streaming. Your one like on any of these social platforms was going to live on that platform forever, as long as that platform remains active. So, and if you didn't want to be seen on this show today, or be a part of, didn't want to be seen as a participant in today's discussion, you will refrain from hitting that like button, by the way. But if you do want to, you'll hit that like button multiple times. So there's a difference in the mindset there, again, in how you view privacy personally, and how your organization views the privacy of its employees as well. So there are a lot of ethical considerations in how that data that is being put out there through different platforms, even within the organization and outside of the organization, is captured. How is it used, and how is it being retained while protecting the identity of the workforce. Such crucial pieces that we really need to think about when we are, again, thinking about digitizing our processes and thinking about, engaging with our workforce in the virtual world. Think about the metaverse that people are talking about. My nephew invited me to a birthday party in this platform called Roblox. I have no idea how to even get into that platform, right? To even sign into it. And he had a birthday party in this platform. Think about all the privacy pieces that our kids are already sending out into the Ethernet, into the virtual world. There are bits and pieces of all of us already there. Not just bits and pieces, maybe our whole personality is there, and AI can tell you whether you're sad or happy at any given time of day, depending on how you're using your Facebook and how you're scrolling through your Facebook. There's so many documentary series out there that talk about this today. So these are very big components of a digital transformation strategy, and very important to keep in mind while we are thinking about transforming our processes.
Jay, there's one more thing. I understood what you talked about in terms of security and privacy when it comes to us HR people. But when we do this transformation process, it's not just us who are interface with this systems. It's the other employees too. There are a lot of people in the organization who are going to access this and use these tools. Now comes the challenge of how do we enable them to use this responsibly?
Absolutely. And that's a very good question and a very good thought as well. Again, it's the mentoring, and how do you help them adopt this digital mindset, and how do you coach them through this process? Think about this. There is a platform called the Glassdoor. I'm sure you've heard about this, where employees can anonymously post information about their experiences within an organization. And the organization cannot do or actually take down any of these posts. These are anonymous posts. And if you were ever going to think about joining that organization, you can go on Glassdoor and look at what employees say about their experiences within the organization. So how can you control that as an organization? You cannot. This is the world we live in. So how do you coach your employees, and how do you work with your employees? What is that employee experience that you are providing to your workforce that will make them talk in a positive manner about your company? And what is it that you are not doing that will make them talk about your company in a negative manner? These are things to think about. And today's workforce, you can't just, give them directions. That's not how it works. It's not the workforce of the 1800s where, you could say, hey, this is a widget, and this is where you place it, and this is the assembly line, and that's how work is done. That's not how work is done today. There are so many ways in which you work in an organization. I call it the physical and the digital nature of today's work, right? It's the phygital. Someone came up with this term. It's called the phygital, and apparently this is so big today, right? Just with our hybrid workforce today, we see that happening everywhere across the globe.
Jay, when we talk about digital transformation and automation, and you've touched upon so many things, it depends on the tools we use, it depends on the technology, it depends on the people who are implementing that, which is probably HR people, and then the process of mentoring and taking care of the other employees, security, privacy, all these things. Is it within the hands of HR people in an organization to go through this digital transformation, or do we really need to have a consultant, an expert to guide us through this process?
Well, you can think about it in two ways. Your organization's leaders and workforce know more about your organization than anyone who's going to come from the outside, right? So how are you promulgating that listening architecture within your organization? How are you enabling your workforce to share their lived experiences within your organization? Is it a psychologically safe workplace to share and be supported? how are you promulgating the exchange of feedback and information between the different layers in your organization? So many things that you have to think about when you're doing this. The second piece is a consultant may or may not have the insights that your internal workforce and leaders have, but they can bring a fresh perspective to what you're doing within your organization. And they might also have other experiences that they can help you adopt within your organization. So I would say 50-50, but definitely never just do one or the other.
And from your experience, how much time does it take? If I'm probably think of a typical organization. Parts of my functions have been automated. I've decided to go the whole way, digital transformation and automation in HR. Typically, how much time do you think? And please also mention about the culture here.
Yes. So it depends on the size of the organization and the size of the team that you have made available to work on this digital, transformation process. Definitely planning and strategizing will help you make the adoption and implementation go much more smoothly and seamlessly and faster. So having a digital plan, a roadmap for your HR digital transformation is very crucial. And secondly, always think about the people. And I keep stressing on this. Are you speaking the language of your people? Are you talking to them or are you talking at them? I was talking to Jayesh before we started today and I told him there's only one sentence I can say very properly in Malayalam because we are NIPM at NIPM Kerala today. And I said, I can only say endana paranjo, and that too with an accent, but I cannot respond to it. Don't ask me to say the next part of that phrase because I don't know what that means. So are you just paying lip service? Is this just that digital lipstick piece where you say that one phrase and you think you've connected with your workforce? Or are you going all the way through where you are deeply, deeply embedded in your organization and listening and learning from your employees and your workforce about their challenges and how a tool like this or a digital, platform like this can help them make their lives easier? Right? Will it make their work easier? Because all of this has a trickle-down effect. A happier workplace leads to a happier life. How many times have you seen your parents or your siblings come home from work and they're really flustered because of something that happened at work? All of these things impact each other, and there's so much intersection in our life and our work. Especially today, we are no longer like life is not happening in the flow of work anymore. I say work is happening in the flow of life. And that's how it should have always been. But the past few years have put that into great perspective for all of us. And we now, make sure that that is what is most important to us as an employee.
So irrespective of all the tools and all the technology, emotions still play a major role.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, you're not going to transform anything on an empty stomach. So I hope everyone's had dinner. That was my first question. It's the emotions, it's the feelings.
Okay, wonderful. We are still there on the basics as far as HR is concerned. Jay, we had a nice talk for the past about half an hour on what's happening right now. Okay, and we discussed that and all the possibilities that are there. But now I think we have to look into the future. We are reaching the end of our time, and so probably it's time to look into the future. And can you tell us, where this is going actually?
Well, Dr. Menon, if I had a crystal ball, I would have imagined myself on an island in the French Riviera and made it happen. But here I am. And based on my experience in human resources for the past 2 decades, this is what I see as the future of HR. It's going to be hyper consumerized, hyper virtualized, and hyper personalized. What do I mean by that? As companies and businesses move into this permanently hybrid future. Think about this as permanent. I'm sorry, we're not going back to that normal workplace culture anymore. This is here to stay. HR is going to have a much bigger role in helping our workforce find purpose at work. And how are we going to do that? Unless we connect with our people every single moment in their work life and outside of it. That is the only way we are going to be able to play that bigger role. And automation and artificial intelligence will continue to evolve. There is all of this automation that's happening in all industries across the board, including human resources. So HR folks, we are not immune to this. We have to adopt technology if we need to remain important in the business and need to be that true business partner to the business. Definitely all of this will free up our time as HR professionals, because once we're automating all of these repetitive tasks and mundane tasks that can be handled by technology easily, we can definitely do more engaging and more meaningful work for our workforce and refocus on what matters most, that H in HR, right? The human.
Yeah, I got it, Jay. But what we'll do is, I just want to get it from you, just for the sake of it, just say, for example, recruitment or hiring, and training and development. Take just two functions in HR. How do you think this AI analytics, all this is going to actually impact it in the future? I'm not saying now. In the future, you said it's going to save us time. It's going to save us significant amount of effort. So tell us, tell just these two functions. Just touch upon them.
Sure.
Applicable in the future.
Absolutely. So recruitment. What is your first interaction, your first touch point with a candidate? It's that job posting or that word of mouth referral from a friend or colleague of yours who heard about this job opening and told you about this position. In recruitment, how are you managing all these multiple touch points to keep the candidate informed of this job opening and keep them interested and engaged throughout the recruitment process? AI is going to play a big role in that piece. It's going to help you connect. You've heard of ChatGPT. Yes, so there are a lot of chatbots and a lot of AI out there that will help you keep that connection and engagement going with your candidates during the whole recruitment process and the hiring process. And then in terms of the talent, how is talent connecting with your brand? There's so many different ways in which you have to be a marketer, right? You can't just be a recruiter. You have to take a marketing approach. How are you connecting? How are you bringing that consumer grade experience to your candidates? How are you helping them engage with your job posting? How are you helping them engage throughout the interview and application process and after as well? Because once they accept the job offer, it's no longer guaranteed today that they are going to start on day one, right? How many times have you been ghosted in the past 2 years? I've been ghosted multiple times. My candidates accepted job offers and disappeared because they got more salary or better perks at another organization that they were interviewing at the same time. AI is going to help you keep all of that engagement piece going and help you gauge the interest of your candidate even after he or she or them have accepted the job offer, and to see if they're still going to start on day one, to help you keep your pipeline going, so you don't let the other candidates know that you found someone, the diamond in the rough, and you don't need them anymore, because that's not the case anymore till they really start on the job. So that's a definite piece in the recruitment and talent parts or processes of an organization where AI and all of these new technologies are going to play a very big role.
Okay, Jay. Whenever we talk about technology and all the advances that are happening, you also have to look at what happens to us, the people there. You did talk every time about think of the people. You also talked about emotions and its importance, but you have to understand that it's a very stressful thing too. This technology can be very stressful. And how do you think the well-being of the employees or the people involved in the process, how do you think it will affect? Because sometimes, I get, last day you talked about ghosting. I got two meetings like this at the same time. Okay, it's happening at the same time, all digital, but then I can't be in two places at the same time. Or maybe can it happen in the future, Jay?
Well, unless they can start cloning humans, I don't know, Dr. Menon, if that's going to happen soon in our lifetime. Um, but yes, the mental well being. When I started HRGeckos and I built HRGeckos, it was a big focus of my work, right? I've been in human resources, like I mentioned, over 2 decades. And one of the biggest hair pulling things for me was the paper in HR. It was extremely stressful to keep all of that accounted for and be accountable for throughout my career. How can I leverage technology to alleviate the stress in my life was one of my biggest focuses. One of the biggest focus when I, decided to take on the HR technology founder role in my work life and found HRGeckos, because stress in HR is so big today. It's huge. A lot of our HR professionals are burnt out from the work that we've been doing through the pandemic and after. And today, a lot of our HR colleagues are leaving our function, believe it or not. There was a research out there, and a lot of articles in the media were talking about how they're leaving in droves and do not want to come back to the HR function. So mental health and employee well-being are not only the biggest pieces of this digital transformation, not just outside of HR for the workforce, but also for our HR teams and our HR professionals. So we have to keep all of that in mind when we are using this technology. And technology can alleviate to a large extent the stress, but at the same time, there's so many different generations in our workforce who are not digital natives. Technology is very stressful for them. I give you this example of my dad. I lost him to COVID, but before COVID happened, I gave my dad a phone, which I call a smartphone, right? We all call it that. But my dad loved his burn phone, the one with the buttons. He called it his button phone, and he's extremely smart, well educated, intelligent. I mean, all of that. He can adapt and adopt technology if he wants it. But he was reluctant to change. He just kept saying, I don't want to be a smart dad. That's what he would tell me. I don't want this smartphone because I'm not a smart dad. How do you work on that kind of mindset, right? It's happening in our workforce. How do we work with that mindset, and how do we help them adopt and adapt to the technology? That's also a big piece of the emotional and well-being and mental health of our workforce.
But Jay, see, when it was papers earlier, it was tough. Even if you had to do that, you had to carry the file home. The moment it started becoming technology and it started getting on to laptops and mobile phones, the work is anyway coming home with us. Now, the more and more we are getting into technology, and the more we are having to use all the digital devices and tools, do you think that how do you separate these two? I'll have to slightly complicate this by saying, now you talked about the hybrid workplace. So work from home is a reality now. We are finding a lot of research is coming out and saying that work from home, it's been mixed since the beginning, but now again it's coming up saying that work from home really is more work than home. It's turning out to be that. And with all this technology that's coming in, you're right, the HR person is actually stressed because a lot of it becomes real time. I'm not entirely sure how we'll be able to, separate this. You have been in HR for 2 decades and working in this area. How do you do it?
So definitely have boundaries. That has always helped me. And even when I was working for an organization, I always had boundaries around my personal time. So I could rejuvenate and be re energized to be efficient and productive. If you're burnt out, you're not useful to anyone, not even to yourself, as you know that, Dr. Meenan. And we've all read psychology and organizational psychology and how burnt out employees are no good, versus a happier workforce leads to a happier business, and definitely huge returns for the business if your employees and your workforce are happy. I've always, I have this. Last year, I started this hashtag for myself on Insta. I call it Chasing the Sun. So I at least spend 90 minutes outdoors. And here in the US, where I live, we have 4 seasons definitely cut out. And during winter, it's the toughest time of the year to be outdoors because it's very cold sometimes and really, really, temperatures really fall very drastically over a period of time. But I made it a point to be outdoors for 90 minutes, irrespective of the weather, and, change my own mindset about being outdoors. There's so many things that we as employees and employers can do to help our employees and ourselves be more productive and be more efficient, and maintain those boundaries so that we can be refreshed and rejuvenated to be our best selves at work.
Jay, before we close, the time is almost running out. I don't know how the time went; it just flew. Anyway, we are now at a stage where the hybrid model is there in place, but we are also talking about the gig economy. And one of the greatest challenges HR is having is keeping those employees, or so-called employees, the definition is always a problem there, who are in a gig economy, engaged with yourself. Do you think these tools are going to really help us in doing that? Because they're a group of employees who are never there. We don't know where they are actually.
I've heard about this from my mother-in-law about someone placing their cat on the laptop to say that they are still working. I don't know if this is true, but she told my husband about this, about a neighbor. It's so, when you say you don't even know if they're still working, it's a trust issue, right? Especially with employers who've been so used to managing their workforce on premises, in a physical location, and always monitoring them, and that evil eye of the manager out on you, whether you stepped out for coffee or tea, or when did you get back to your desk? These things don't work anymore. I mean, think about this. How effective and efficient was your workforce when you were constantly monitoring them, versus when they were working from home during the pandemic, when we've all definitely shifted to that work from home remote environment, and now we are kind of mostly hybrid? Not a lot of difference. The productivity is still actually better now than it was ever before, based on all of the research that's out there.
Yes,
How do employees like to be monitored? Like, would you like to be monitored if you stepped out for coffee or tea? No, right? It's that trust. How do you build that trust? And it's a two-way street. How do you build trust, and how do they accept the trust that you are trying to build, and in return be more productive and be more efficient? It's a two-way street, and it's all about dialogue and communication at all times, and always having an open door to talk with your workforce. Even as a leader within your organization, you should be able to share your shortcomings, right? And be able to share that, hey, no, I was so tired today that I really need to be offline. I will not be on video on any of the calls today. I'm available, but I'm not going to be on video. I'll just be on audio. Say that and make this a practice. So, your team also understands you're human. Show your human side. You don't have to be an automaton, right?
Jay, yes, it goes back to the old paradigm of feedback and disclosure. Disclosure and feedback. As long as you keep on doing that, you remain human, and others will recognize you as human. Jay, that was a wonderful conversation we had. We have spent nearly 45 minutes discussing this. For the sake of the audience, amongst whom many of them are just into the topic and are just looking out for information, I've we have kept the questions basically on a very generic level to give them an idea of what are the different things over here and how does it actually affect both HR professionals, the HR function, the HR functionaries, and of course the employees in an organization. At this point of time, I would also like to ask the audience who are there, if any of you have a question to pose. We have very limited time, but if you have any questions that you want Jay to respond to, you may please put that in the chat box.
Well, this has been very insightful to me too. Thank you for those questions. It made me think here in the morning. And you are so resourceful, even at 8 p.m. in the night without dinner. So, Dr. Meenan, you need to be on this side of the table. I should be the moderator, I think.
Oh, no, thank you, Jay. Jay, most of those were very honest questions. Okay. Now, we can talk all the technical terms there. We can have a huge discussion on the different types of tools. We could have gone into that, what are the tools that are used to, how does AI actually get into this? But at a very basic function, at a basic level, HR is still grasping, at least where we are. Apart from the information IT companies who are quite way ahead into that, all the rest of them are playing catch up. And it's becoming a kind of a very fast race where the leaders are going really very fast and the rest of them are just trying to. I'm sure there are a number of people who have not heard some of the terms even we talked today. They're very basic. But I don't know how it's there out in the US, but here it's a huge catch-up game we are playing. Many organizations are just into it. And remember, just even look at the title, artificial intelligence, data analytics, digital transformation. It's enough to make anybody slightly insecure. We are just into this. Even when you talk about data analytics, because I come from the education sector, many of the universities in India are just about catching up. It's just about being about 5 to 8 years since some of the leading universities have just started their courses. You said that HR should know that, isn't it? You said that. You just
Yes.
Most institutions have just put it up in a year or two. The last 1
Absolutely.
or 2 years, it's just coming.
Absolutely. I am a frequent visitor to India and I'm always involved with a lot of things that happen in India. We do have an office in India as well. And so I hail from the state of Andhra Pradesh before I came to the US 23 years ago. But when I keep going back and forth, I see the transformation that's happening in our educational system around HR as well. We are no longer being seen as this function that only conducts all these events for the organization. We're actually being seen as a true business partner today. And how we as HR professionals talk about our function and without downplaying the event management, which is of course a big piece of our engagement with our employees, but also talking about the other crucial pieces of our work, right? We are not just here to approve leave. We are not just here to push paper. We are here to be that enabler in the organization, be that true business partner to our leaders so that they can make this a better business for everyone and be those true business leaders in today's competitive hybrid world of work.
I'm still waiting for a few questions, but Jay,
Okay.
on matter, I think we'll just keep going for a few more minutes. I think many organizations here have already adopted artificial intelligence in their hiring process. So one of the skills that we used to proudly mention at some point, about 10 years, 20, 15 years ago, as an HR expert, I take only a few moments to actually scan through a biodata or a CV or a resume, and then I decide, which resume can be taken, considered, or which cannot be considered. It used to be a huge skill that HR people used to say, and some people used to say, I would take only 10 seconds, 20 seconds to finish off a resume and quickly go through that. I think it's almost completely taken over by artificial intelligence. That process where the resume scanning is done and you look at which are the appropriate resumes, it's gone. So just like you said, it saves a lot of time. I interestingly, I also came over, this was just before COVID hit us. I'd just gone to a company and they had used analytics. Looking at past performance and various parameters, and the program would actually give their employees a red, orange, and a green signal. In fact, the names would come in these colors. If it's red, it means they're they're already looking out for opportunities. Okay, they're leaving the organization is imminent. Okay, and if it's orange, it means I think they've started considering it, not very actively, but they're looking into it. And so they are a population. The red, it's very difficult to retain. The orange, certainly we have to look into, and the green are those people who are happy about it. Their engagement levels are high. We are at present not in danger of losing them. I saw that, and these were some very wonderful initiatives, the interventions that come from AI and analytics. Jay, your comments?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've seen that too. The red, yellow, and the green. I mean, if you're already coding your employees in those colors, it's too late for you. I'm sorry. But at the same time, analytics is such a big thing. We so underutilized in our function. Think about any of the other functions, marketing, for example, or even information technology departments in your organization. They rely so much on data. Think about help desks. Just talk about help desks. Information technology, your IT department always had a help desk. It could, tabulate the metrics on how many people were contacting them, what kind of issues your employees were facing with the technology, how are they being resolved by the IT team. They had so many metrics to talk about who on their team is their star player. In HR, we never had any of that. We still don't. Why don't we? It's a huge thing for us to think about. Data and analytics are totally underutilized in the HR function. Definitely need to be more utilized to help us enable our employees to be those star players. So we don't categorize them into that red, yellow, and green, and they're always the green employees, the high performers, and the utopian world that I think of where everyone is a star player, the quarterback on your football team, always. And how do you make that happen?
Yeah, I think I've provoked a few people by my comments. It's always something that happens. It's always this. The IT sector who comes up with all these kind of technology-related interventions. So the question is there from Suresh Nagaraj Rao, who has asked whether the same things will work for the manufacturing companies also.
Absolutely. Why not? It's all about how you connect with your employees, right? Like I said, do you speak your employees' language? And then I'm just saying that. Do you just say that and leave it at that? Or do you go further and engage in the conversation with your employees? Do you ask them what their challenges are before you throw this technology at them and say, hey, use this will make your work life easier? Are you asking them how to make their work life easier before you throw technology or any kind of other new projects or processes at them? How are you really making that conversation work for you as an organization? So crucial to any project management, to any process change in an organization, or even outside of an organization, even in life. You discuss this as a family about what you're going to have for breakfast and lunch and dinner the next day? You do discuss that. Usually it's your mom who decides it, but at the same time, there's a discussion on what she's going to make for you that's going to make you eat it so she doesn't have to throw it away. Same thing, apply it at work. Why are you not engaging with your workforce and asking them, going to that basic level that you were referring to earlier, Dr. Menon, and asking them on the ground, they're the boots on the ground. What are their challenges? Talk to them, see what they say. Listen before you talk. That should be your approach.
And Jay, one more thing is there. As technology is going up, we are seeing that we are not looking at the manufacturing plants that used to be of years ago. It's all getting automated. You're talking about automation, so it's all getting automated. And the person who's working on these machines, at least the people who are running them, it's not like the manual thing. It's completely automated now, and they have to understand these concepts. They have to understand, they are dealing with machines which are very intelligent. It's just like what your father said. And I also sometimes say this, my phone has become smarter than me many a times. Now with all, Bing and Chat GPT and things like that, it knows much more than what I do. And that's the reality. So it happens. And these people are having to interact not with mechanical devices that used to be there in machines, but mostly with digital interfaces. And so it applies just like in IT as far in manufacturing also. Or I think it's going to happen very soon in the next 4 or 5 years. Depends on which place you are in the on the earth.
Absolutely. It's all about how, you educate your workforce as well, right? Like, how are you helping them learn these new technologies and how are you helping them adopt them in their work? So crucial. It's an ongoing conversation. It's not like a 9-month rollout and you're done, right? It's not like that ever. It should never be like that. It's always an ongoing conversation for it to be a true digital transformation for you and your employees.
Okay. Just to add on to that point, to what Suresh had asked with regards to that question, I recently read a case in an organization, and it was a manufacturing organization. And one of the challenges manufacturing organization faces is with regards to electricals. Okay, so the electric circuit. So they go, foot anywhere here, there. There could be hundreds of places where these problems can happen with the relays and the connections. And companies did this study. I think they used analytics to find out for the last 1 or 2 years what has been the trend or what's been happening in their shop floor. And they were able to identify the points which actually triggered these problems. Okay, it was not the major problems, it was very minor issues that were triggering most of these. And so they could sort it out. I think they saved millions in the process of sorting this electrical circuitry out. Okay, it was a tire manufacturing unit, but this is how they used analytics to basically identify. Because every time they used to do firefighting, the people used to go and sort it out. They never recorded it. So once they started doing that and they had data with them, they knew exactly the picture. They got the big picture there and could identify.
Absolutely. It probably was someone who was tripping on a wire without knowing they were doing that and causing the whole circuit to fail, right? And they never knew who that employee was till they started recording the environment, right?
Absolutely. Some of these findings could be really, shocking for many people like us. It could give us very different answers, or even ask us very difficult questions. When employees start giving feedback like that, that could also be one of the, important things. I think the leadership in organizations and HR especially has to wake up to this dawning of a new era where we are going to deal with these artificial intelligence, analytics, data information, and almost complete automation as far as HR is concerned. I think it's high time we woke up to that. I think today's session, we have now spent close to about an hour talking to each other, Jay. It was such a pleasure. I hope our audience would have benefited at least a little bit in being aware of these concepts and where we are going in the future. Jay, very big thanks from my side. It was indeed a pleasure. So it was no effort at all. It was great talking to you.
Absolutely, Dr. Menon. Thank you again for those insightful questions. Like I said, they really got my reels turning in here. So thank you for that. And I'm so excited to, be a part of the Summer Carnival of HR that you have going at NIPM in the Kerala chapter. And so happy to share my insights and learn from you today and to meet you virtually. And I hope to see you in person soon, like the IRL world outside of the Zoom window, hopefully.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, audience.
Bye, everyone.
On behalf of NIPM, I would like to thank everyone who joined us for this program on all our channels. Have a great night. And for those who are there on that side of the world, I hope you have a great day. Jay, for you.